How does a narcissist actually know they have lost you for good? Most people think the answer is simple. They think it's the moment you block their number, delete their photos, or finally walk out the front door. But let's be real for a second. The narcissist doesn't care about your physical absence as much as you think they do. In their mind, physical distance is just a temporary obstacle. You can block them on every platform, move to a different city, or go completely silent, and they will still convince themselves that you are just playing a game, that you are taking a break, or trying to get their attention. To a narcissist, physical distance isn't a loss. It's just a challenge to be overcome. The truth is much darker and much more calculated. A narcissist only truly realizes they have lost you when they realize they can no longer use you. They are emotional predators who are constantly scanning their environment for one specific thing: fuel. They aren't looking for love, they aren't looking for partnership, and they certainly aren't looking for a balanced relationship. They are looking for a reliable, high-quality source of supply. Think of it like a business. If a product isn't generating a profit, it gets discontinued. If you aren't feeding them the validation, the emotional chaos, or the attention they need to feel superior, you simply become an outdated, useless asset in their portfolio. This is why they are so good at weeding out their targets. They are constantly running experiments on people. They push a button to see if you get angry. They say something cruel to see if you start crying. They act cold to see if you start chasing them. If you react in the way they expect, they've successfully hooked you. They know you are a, quote, good source because you are predictable and you are compliant. But the moment you stop playing that role, the moment you stop providing the fuel that keeps their ego inflated, you become a liability to them. When you stop reacting, the narcissist realizes their toolkit is broken. They can no longer influence your mood, they can no longer control your self-esteem, and they can no longer live rent-free in your head. When that happens, the power dynamic shifts overnight. It isn't about you leaving them, it's about you becoming unusable. Today, we are going to break down the exact mechanics of how they identify these targets, how they try to test you to see if you're still on the hook, and most importantly, how you can calibrate yourself to become so effectively unusable that they simply have no choice but to move on and leave you alone for good. For a narcissist, your emotions are not just feelings. They are the absolute favorite currency they use to navigate the world. Imagine you are walking into a high-stakes casino where the house has rigged every single machine. That is exactly what a relationship with a narcissist feels like. They don't want your money, your time, or your affection in the way a healthy person would. Instead, they crave the intense, high-octane reactions you give them. Every time you get angry, every time you tear up, and every time you desperately try to explain your side of the story, you are essentially handing them a paycheck. They thrive on this because it confirms that they have successfully infiltrated your internal world. They maintain this currency by keeping you trapped on an unpredictable emotional roller coaster. They are master technicians of the human experience, and they know exactly how to pull your strings to get the specific reaction they need. One moment they might be showering you with warmth, only to pull the rug out from under you with cold indifference the next. They do this on purpose. They want you spinning, guessing, and constantly questioning your own reality. When they see you spiraling into guilt or feeling that sharp sting of sadness, they don't feel empathy, they feel a rush of power. It makes them feel like a puppet master, standing safely on the sidelines while you perform for their entertainment. If you are emotionally invested, you have essentially handed them the keys to your life, and they now own the entire board. When they can make you scream in frustration or pull you into a dark place of depression, they feel like they are in total command of your existence. This is why they are so obsessed with pushing your buttons. They treat your boundaries like obstacles they need to hurdle, and they treat your insecurities like a map they can use to navigate your vulnerabilities. They are constantly testing to see if their influence is still working. As long as they can successfully trigger a reaction from you, they don't just think they have you, they know they have you exactly where they want you. This is the cycle of crazy making. The more you defend yourself, the more they laugh. The more you scream, the more they feel superior. The more you try to show them how you feel, the more they use those feelings to manipulate your next move. They are counting on the fact that your natural human empathy will keep you trapped in this game. They know that you want to be heard and you want to be understood, and they use that desire as a hook. They are never actually listening to your words. They are only listening for the sound of your emotional breaking point. And as long as they can find that point, they will keep running the show, convinced that you are nothing more than a source of energy they can drain whenever they feel the need. But what actually happens when you finally decide to cut off the supply? When you stop playing the game, you undergo a massive transformation in the narcissist's eyes. You instantly stop being a prime target and start becoming a massive liability to their entire operation. Think about it. A narcissist is essentially a predator who operates on a very specific set of psychological rules. They depend on your participation to make their world work. When you stop reacting, when you stop crying, stop explaining, and stop trying to defend your sanity, you break their system. They cannot function in an environment where they cannot deceive, manipulate, or predict the outcome of their actions. It makes their skin crawl because for the first time, they are staring into a void where they used to see a reflection of their own power. When you become a blank canvas, you become a living nightmare for them. You become completely unreadable, utterly indifferent, and totally unresponsive to the specific mind games that used to work like clockwork. They try their classic tactics. They send the guilt-tripping text. They make a subtle jab about your character, or they manufacture a fake crisis to get you to panic. But when they get absolutely nothing back from you, no anger, no tears, and no engagement, they are left standing in the wreckage of their own failed strategy. They simply do not know what to do with you because they don't know how to interact with a human being who isn't a puppet. You become a variable they cannot calculate, and that is terrifying for someone who needs absolute control to feel secure. You frustrate them to their very core, and that frustration is the greatest sign of your progress. You have effectively taken back the remote control to your own mind. Imagine a puppeteer who suddenly finds that the strings they are holding have been cut. They keep pulling, they keep jerking, and they keep shouting commands, but the doll just sits there, perfectly still. That is the power of your indifference. By refusing to give them the emotional reaction they need, you force them to realize that their influence over you has evaporated. They realize they can no longer live rent-free in your head, and they can no longer use your mood as a tool for their amusement. In that moment of silence, you have reclaimed your autonomy. They will try to find a reason why it isn't working. They will tell themselves that you are acting out, that you are confused, or that you are just being difficult. But deep down, they feel the sting of their own irrelevance. You have become a liability because you are no longer generating profit for their ego. You are no longer providing the fuel they need to keep their fragile reality intact. When you reach this state of total emotional detachment, you aren't just protecting yourself, you are dismantling the very foundation of their power. And that is why your silence is the loudest, most effective message you could ever send. This is exactly where the gray rock method transitions from a simple tactic into your ultimate impenetrable shield. To execute this, you must become exactly what the name implies: boring, distant, and completely uninteresting. Think of a gray rock sitting on the side of a hiking trail. It doesn't offer any drama, it doesn't react when you shout at it, and it certainly doesn't provide any emotional entertainment. By adopting this persona, you are effectively starving the narcissist of the chaos they desperately crave. They come to you looking for a fireworks show, and when they find only a silent, steady, and unbothered person, their entire supply chain collapses. You aren't just ignoring them, you are rendering yourself invisible to their games. Be warned, however, an unbothered mind is deeply, profoundly offensive to a narcissist. Most people don't realize that in their world, indifference is an act of war. When you refuse to be stirred, you are essentially telling them that they are irrelevant. And for someone whose entire self-worth is built on the belief that they are the most important person in every room, this is a devastating blow. Anyone who makes a narcissist feel out of control becomes an instant threat to their fragile reality. They will view your calm, centered energy as a personal insult, a sign of rebellion that they cannot leave unpunished. Because they cannot process your boundaries, they will interpret your peace as an invitation to ramp up the intensity. Because they feel threatened, they will almost always launch one last desperate attempt to provoke you. This is the stage where they pull out the heavy artillery. They might try to insult you, gaslight you about the past, invent a fake emergency, or even act incredibly kind to catch you off guard. They are searching for that one crack in your armor, hoping to see a spark of the old reactive you. They are testing you to see if they can make you break, if they can get that fix of emotional fuel one last time. If you hold your ground and refuse to bite, if you keep your answers short, polite, and completely devoid of emotional depth, you win. You signal that the connection is officially severed. Once they realize that the button they've been pushing no longer works, the shift is sudden and total. They will quickly realize that you are no longer a viable source of supply. The energy required to try to control you is no longer yielding a return on their investment. At this point, the vast majority of narcissists will stop wasting their time. They are, at their core, pathologically lazy when it comes to getting their needs met. They will simply pack up the games and move on to an easier target who is still willing to play along. By choosing to be a gray rock, you aren't just playing defense, you are successfully engineering your own exit strategy, leaving them to search for a new victim while you finally reclaim the peace you deserve. You might be operating under the assumption that going strictly no contact is the ultimate, final way to prove to a narcissist that you are gone. And let's be clear, physically, it is absolutely essential. You need that space to heal, to stabilize your nervous system, and to rebuild your life away from the constant noise of their manipulation. Cutting off communication is the first step in protecting your physical and mental safety. However, there is a dangerous trap here that most people miss. You are looking at this from a healthy, rational perspective, but you are dealing with someone who is living in a completely different reality. You have to understand that in the mind of a narcissist, no contact isn't a final goodbye. It's just a puzzle they haven't solved yet. Narcissists are, by definition, highly delusional. When you block their number, unfollow their socials, and close every door, they don't look in the mirror and think, "I lost a good person." Instead, they interpret your silence as a challenge. In their twisted mental narrative, they still own you. They view your boundaries as nothing more than a temporary quote-unquote tantrum or a game of cat and mouse. They convince themselves that you are just playing hard to get, or that you are testing them, or that you are hiding because you are still secretly obsessed with them. Because they cannot comprehend a world where they aren't the center of your universe, they assume that if they just find the right angle, a new phone number, a fake social media profile, a mutual friend, or a random email, they can break through your defenses and reestablish their control. This is why true freedom is so much more than just a physical blockade. Physical distance is the container, but emotional detachment is the cure. You can have 1,000 miles between you and them, but if you are still sitting in your room wondering what they are thinking, or feeling a pit in your stomach when you hear a song that reminds you of them, you are still in contact mentally. You are still providing them with remote emotional supply. True liberation only arrives when you stop caring about their opinion entirely. It is that profound moment when you finally stop looking for closure from them, stop obsessing over why they did what they did, and stop feeling the need to explain your side of the story. Total emotional detachment is the ultimate death blow to their ego. It is the ability to look right through their manipulation, to see their attempts at contact for exactly what they are, and feel absolutely nothing. No anger, no sadness, no lingering curiosity. When you reach this state, you have moved beyond the physical act of blocking. You have essentially deleted them from the operating system of your life. When they realize that their attempts to reach you are met with the same level of indifference as a spam email, they eventually run out of steam. They cannot maintain the delusion of ownership when you have completely checked out of the game. That is when you are truly, irrevocably gone. At the end of the day, you have to realize that a narcissist's deepest, darkest, and most persistent fear is not losing your love or losing your presence. It is losing control over you. Their entire identity is constructed like a fragile house of cards, and that house stands only as long as they can manipulate the people around them. They desperately need your emotional reactions to survive. Without your fear, your anger, your tears, or even your attempts to fix them, they essentially cease to exist in your world. Think of yourself as a powerhouse, and the narcissist as someone who has been plugging into your energy grid to keep their own lights on. When you finally pull the plug, they are left sitting in the dark, forced to confront the reality that they have no power of their own. The path to your ultimate victory is simpler than it sounds, but it requires a level of discipline that is truly life-changing. You have to strip your emotions entirely out of the equation. This doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop giving those feelings away to someone who doesn't deserve them. When the narcissist tries to provoke you, you don't fight back. When they try to guilt trip you, you don't justify your choices. You treat them with a polite, cold, and absolute indifference. You become a black hole for their attention. Nothing goes out, and nothing comes back in. This is the ultimate act of defiance. By refusing to validate their existence with even a single negative emotion, you are signaling to them that they have officially run out of resources. You are showing them that the well has finally run dry. When you reach this stage, you aren't just winning an argument, you are winning your life back. The moment they realize there is absolutely nothing left for them to feed on, no more fuel, no more drama, and no more supply, they are forced to look elsewhere. They will eventually detach and move on because a narcissist has no interest in a source that doesn't yield a profit for their ego. They are predators of convenience, and when you make yourself inconvenient, you become invisible to them. You are no longer their victim. You are a person they can no longer reach. This isn't just about escaping a difficult person. It's about reclaiming the energy that was rightfully yours all along. It is the moment you stop living your life in reaction to them and start living it for yourself. I know many of you are currently in the thick of this struggle, navigating the chaos and trying to find your footing. I want to hear your story. Drop a comment below and share how you finally took your power back. Whether you are currently gray rocking, going no contact, or just starting your journey toward detachment, your voice matters. Let's talk about how you broke the cycle and reclaimed your peace.